All right, everyone, let's look at some more ways we can sort of analyze a table of an exponential function and figure out how to write its equation or its formula, okay? So once again, we have an exponential function here. F of x is going to equal a times, let's keep using r to the x power, okay? F of x is going to equal a times r to the x power. Just like last time, we don't know yet what a is, right? We're not told what f of 0 is. We're not given 0 in one column and a value of f of 0 in the column next to it, right? So we have to do some work to figure it out. We also have to do some work to figure out what our ratio is. All right, so let's get started. So let's remember that if we knew, right, if we knew f of x and the immediately previous term, right, we could compute that to find the ratio, right? Like, okay, we have f of 5, right? We have f of 5 right here. We'd really like to have f of 4. We'd love to have f of 4 because then we could compute that and find r. We have f of 3, right? We have f of 3. We'd really love to have f of 2. We'd love to have f of 2 because then we could compute that and find r. But we don't have those values, do we? We have gaps in our information. Often in life, you're going to have gaps in your information, right? And you got to get your brain prepared to fill in those gaps, which is what we're doing here. Okay, but here's what we can do. Okay, we have f of 5, right? We have f of 5. Okay, we have f of 5. Um, we wish we had f of 4, but we don't. But we do have f of 3. So let's see what we can work with, okay? We do have f of 3. All right, and we know that equals what? What do we know that equals? We know that equals 48 over 3, right? Okay, we can find our ratio given this information. Okay, how in the world can we do that? Well, we're going to use this general form of our formula, okay? We don't know what a is and we don't know what r is, but we know that the formula for f of x has to be of this form, right? Because we know this is an exponential function. So we know that f of 5 has to be, let me replace f of 5. We know that f of 5, right, since it's a function, we know that it has to be a times r to the 5th power, right? Doesn't it make sense if we plug in x equals 5 here? The only thing that's going to change is the exponent on the ratio is going to be 5, right? So we know f of 5 has to be a times r to the 5th power, right? Know that for a fact. Similarly, we know that f of 3 has to be what? We know for sure that f of 3 has to be a times r to the 3rd power, right? Okay, so here we have an equation set up, and we can use this equation. How can we use this equation? We can use it, oh boy, I'm sorry everyone, let me correct a mistake. F of 5, remember, remember this was f of 5 divided by f of 3, right? F of 5 divided by f of 3, that should be 3 over 48, right? My fault, everyone. That should be 3 over 48. All right, I hope that didn't confuse anyone. I hope that didn't confuse anyone. Remember that f of 5, we're calculating f of 5 over f of 3, right? And f of 5 is 3, f of 3 is 48. So we set up our fraction on our right-hand side, 3 over 48. And then on our left-hand side, we just plugged in x equals 5 in the numerator and x equals 3 in the denominator to write it in terms of our exponential function formula here. Okay, what happens on the left-hand side? These factors of a cancel out, right? These factors of a cancel out. And we're left with what? We're left with r to the 5th power over r to the 3rd power, right? Hopefully, hopefully we remember what our rules of exponents are. Because if we have the same base raised to some power, and if we have a fraction of the same base raised to different powers is what I should say, right? What we do is we take that base and take the top power and subtract the bottom power. Hopefully we remember that, okay? And r to the 5 minus third power, well, that's what? That's r to the second power, right? That's r to the second power. R to the second power equals 3 over 48. Okay, can we simplify 3 over 48? Let's see. Let's make some room over here. 3 over 48, right? Well, 3 is, there's only two possible factors for 3. 3 times 1. Does 48 have a factor of 3? It does. 48 is equal to 3 times 16. Cancel out this factor of 3. It simplifies into 1 over 16, okay? So 3 over 48 simplifies to 1 over 16. That's going to be really helpful. That's going to help us figure something out much easier. So r squared is 1 over 16, right? Okay, what does that mean? Well, let me make some more room. We'll find out what that means. That means that if r squared is 1 over 16, that means r is the square root of 1 over 16, right? That means r is the square root of 1 over the square root of 16. That means r is 1 over 4. Okay, we figured out our common ratio, right? We figured out our common ratio. We have figured out that r is equal to 1 over 4 by this method, okay? All right, let me try to make some room here. Make some room, let me get rid of all of this so that we can write down the conclusion which we have just reached. That conclusion being r equals positive 1/4. Okay, that's helpful. So we now know that f of x, right? We now know that f of x is equal to a times 1/4 to the x power, okay? Now, to find a, we just have to take any given data point, okay? Let's pick a pretty easy looking one. Let's pick 5 and 3, 5 comma 3, okay? And let's plug that in. Let's evaluate. We know that f of 5, you know that f of 5 equals 3, right? Okay, so we know that f of 5 is going to be a times 1 over 4 to the 5th power, and we know that equals 3, okay? We know that for sure. Now, let me make some more room here. I know this is a process, and it might look confusing, but we know how to do every step, right? We know how to do every step of this process, so don't be intimidated. It might be a lot of work, but it's all work that you know how to do. Okay, so that's going to be a times, well, what is 1 over 4 to the 5th power? That's 1 to the 5th power over 4 to the 5th power. That equals 3, right? Okay, that's a times 1 over, what's 4 to the 5th power? It's going to be a pretty large number here. It's going to be 1024. Okay, and if I can make some more room, I can make some more room here. Get my brush back. There we go. We know that a times 1 over 2000, sorry, a times 1 over 1024 is equal to 3, right? Okay, what can we do? We can multiply both sides by 1024. Let me draw this somewhere. Let me need more room. Room. Always need more room, right? Okay. Here we go. All right, we're going to multiply both sides by 1024. Okay, going to multiply by 1000. Multiply both sides by 1024. That cancels out over here. A times 1 is just a, right? Equals 3 times 1024 is 3072. And there we've found our initial value. So a is 3072, r is 1/4. What do we know? What do we know? We're going to get rid of this right here, and we're going to write what f of x is, because f of x is 3072 times 1/4 to the x power. There we have it. There's a little bit of work to do, but we know how to do every step, right? We just got to organize our thinking and take it a step at a time, and we will get the answer.